everyone. My name is Amit Shayan, and I'm currently a student at IIT Bombay. I took the SET in 2024, August, and I scored 1530 in the SETs. So today I'll be telling a little bit about my journey through the SETs, why you should take the SET, and how do we go about it. So firstly, what is the SET? So the SETs are essentially a test that are often accepted widely by American colleges, many colleges within India, as well as colleges across the world, including the UK, Singapore, etc. So the SAT is it's primarily used by colleges, and it is conducted by the college board. And we can use these scores to get admission into colleges as undergraduate students. So, what exactly is the SAT and how do we take this test? So, the SAT is a test that we can register for. It is conducted in an online mode, and there are two subjects, that is English and math. The test has the scoring between 400 marks to 1600 marks, and any score above 1400 is considered a very good score. So, how long do we need to prepare for this test? That totally depends from person to person. I personally had to spend a total of 2 weeks to prepare for the SAT since I had also simultaneously been preparing for JEE. So I did not really need to prepare much for math or English for that matter. But depending on the person, they may need more or less time. What the structure of the SAT is that it includes four sections: two sections for English and two sections for math. So essentially, English has the first section that we get a total of around 40 minutes to answer all the questions. There are about 25 questions. And then we have the second section, which also has 25 questions and about 40 minutes. The thing, however, is that the second question can get progressively harder depending on how well we have performed in the first section. And this is the advantage of the digital paper. The sections get adapted to your scores and to your level of difficulty, and accordingly you will get a test paper. Now, the first thing is that preparing for the SATs is a bit of a confusing thing since we don't have a lot of sources. We have very rarely heard about the SATs. For example, everybody talks about JEE, NEET, etc., but very few people talk about the SATs. That's because it is a little more obscure, at least in India. And main prospects of the SATs are in colleges abroad, as well as some colleges in India. But predominantly, it's for admission into colleges in the United States, the United Kingdom, Singapore, and other prestigious colleges. Now, about the sections that are present in the SAT paper. So, in total, we have four sections: two for English, that is reading and writing, and two for math. So English includes questions from vocabulary, comprehension, and a couple of phrases and general idioms and etc. in English. Now, the comprehension part is a very important part since it encompasses the majority of English. One must be able to understand how to infer information from a large paragraph. Earlier, back when we had the written SATs, we used to have only a few comprehensions, only a few paragraphs, and we were supposed to answer several questions based on a single comprehension. However, now, ever since the advent of the digital SAT, we have one comprehension per question. So one must really increase their reading speeds. Since we have several 50 to 100 words comprehensions, and we have only 30 minutes or so for answering 25 questions. So essentially, one must be able to read very quickly. One should be able to read an entire comprehension paragraph within 1 minute and also be able to quickly understand the question, answer it accordingly. Further, we have the second section of English, which is identical to the first section. However, its difficulty depends on your performance in the first section. Essentially, you will take your first section and then you will get a break. The computer is going to calculate your score already, but it will not display your score. However, it will be able to figure out whether to give you a difficult paper, an easy paper, or a medium paper based on your performance in the first section. So that means that the difficult second section is always a good sign. It means that you have performed well in the first section. Moving on to maths, we have questions from a number of topics, including but not limited to algebra, simple everyday math, trigonometry, and a little bit about the Cartesian system and Cartesian planes, that is lines, equations, etc. However, none of these are very difficult. Most of them are simply 10th grade level or at the very most 11th and 12th grade, that to basic level. So essentially, in order for you to be able to solve these questions, you must keep track of the time. We also have the advantage of having a calculator available in the ACTs. We are not doing our own calculators as well as we are provided a graphing calculator on the on-screen calculator that is provided during the test. So there is no problem of calculations. One must be able to quickly understand the question and make sure not to fall for tricky questions. So the primary way to score in math is to read the question properly because the SATs they love to trick us with questions that are actually really easy, but they have a little difficult language. So it is kind of troublesome for us to understand what is being asked. So one must make sure to not overlook a question or not underlook it. One must also not overthink the question because these questions that we are often asked in SATs they are relatively simple, so there is no need to waste time on a question that is otherwise simple. Now, there is also a very important use of trigonometry. While there are very complicated trigonometric equations out there, in SETs we only require very basic trigonometric equations, such as the understanding of what sine theta is, what cos theta is, tan theta, etc. So it is nothing too complicated. It is very much reachable for most people who are preparing to study for even NEET or JEE. These are very common goals for the students. These are very tricky and very tough papers, as well as there's a lot of competition. So the SATs offer a far easier as well as a far less competitive scenario for the students to take to pursue essentially. In taking your SAT, there is a whole road open for you after your SATs are completed. So essentially, it is the gateway to all foreign colleges as well as many colleges within India. So, in fact, all the Ivy League colleges such as Harvard, Stanford, and other colleges such as the University of Pennsylvania, Columbia, etc., MIT, that is the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, they all look for students with excellent SAT scores along with extracurricular activities. Typically, SAT scores in all Ivy League colleges range above 1500, and for that, you will have to prepare well. However, don't worry if you have even a lesser SAT score since there are colleges for all SAT scorers. In fact, if you look at the average SAT scores, they are about 1000. So if you're above that, you are most definitely sure to get a good college in the United States or in the United Kingdom, Singapore, etc. In fact, many colleges within the UK, Singapore, as well as the United States often offer you incredible student grants and tuition discounts, scholarships, etc., for having good SAT scores. So the first thing that happens once your SAT results are out are to look for colleges that accept students within your SAT scores. The colleges with the highest SAT scores averages, such as John Hopkins, MIT, etc., require you to have an exceptionally high score, while some colleges will require you to have lower SAT scores, such as 1400, 1300, or even lesser in some cases. So essentially, if you have a good SAT score, you are sure to get into a good college that is often less competitive and often easier to get than most colleges within India that we get through the conventional competitive exams such as JEE and NEET. So it's essentially one of the easiest ways for you to get into a good college without having to go through the struggle of incredible competition that we often have in India for many engineering as well as medical degrees. Further, SATs will not limit your scope. Essentially, you can use SAT scores to get into an engineering college, to get into a medical degree, to get into any other fields that you wish to, depending on the streams that you have chosen in your 11th and 12th grade. And oftentimes, some colleges will not require you to have certain streams in order to pursue a particular course. So essentially, SATs offer a lot more flexibility than the conventional exams such as JEE, NEET, and CUET as well. Since you have essentially the full right to choose whatever course you want in whichever college you want based on your SAT scores.